Greetings, greetings and peace, love and power, oneness. Welcome. Going to talk some talk this evening. We're going to connect. I know it's been a long time coming. It's been a long time being able to connect in this way. You know, there's so much going on in the world, so much going on just on so many levels that many of us are needing to withdraw, pull back our energy to as a form of reclamation, as a form of self-preservation, as a form of healing. When you look at anything in the in our natural environment, in the animal kingdom, in the plant kingdom, you will find that all animals, right? All animals, peace. Hey, family, what's going on? You will find that all animals, all plants, they have these inbuilt survival mechanisms, right? Think about a Venus flytrap. Think about a cactus. When I think of a cactus, I think of a porcupine. These animals, these plants, these things in our natural world have an instinctual built-in mechanism that will cause them to protect itself in order for it to survive, and in many cases not only just survive but to continue, right, to create and recreate itself. This is what goes on in the natural kingdom, right? So for a while, I've not wanted to come up and show my face, not for any other reason, but for the importance of the focus being on the message, not on the messenger, right? Because sometimes we get caught up, especially in this social media world. Everything is about aesthetics. How does it look? How does it sound? You know, is it appealing? Because it's like we've been so dumbed down that our senses has to always constantly be stimulated in order for us to get some information. She's back. Yeah, so tonight we're going to talk about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone. It's been a long time coming for me to talk candidly about my journey. I wanted it to be a no frills discussion. I wanted to share it not only with the people that are near and dear to my heart and my spirit, those that have followed me throughout all of the journeys, through the Starseed Healer, through the Aphrodite Stone, through the Ningba, through it all, right? And also to those that would just find themselves coming into my reality. Because depending upon where we are at any given time, where we're vibrating, what frequency we're vibrating on, that will determine the type of energies we attract to us in our lives. And oftentimes I used to ask myself, what happened to so and so a person? What happened to this person? Well, one or two things was happening. I wasn't vibrating on the frequency that I needed to be able to connect with certain people, or they weren't vibrating on the frequency that they needed to be on to connect with me. Because remember, we can only attract what we're vibrating, where we're vibrating at. Those are the only energies that you're ever going to be able to attract. I don't care what anybody tells you. So I wanted this to be a no frills discussion about Aphrodite Stone, the rise, the fall, some of the in between. Naturally, we can never tell it all, but I want to bring out some of the very most important points um, for people that have continued to rock with me throughout this journey, and also for people who are just finding themselves back into my universe. So I took it upon myself. I want to say welcome. I'm not going to focus solely on the comments just now because I want to stay in the flow, but I promise I will make sure to take some time near my exit to acknowledge those of you that are with me in this moment. So get comfortable, right? Let me just go ahead and state for the record that I'm still the same. I do not give anybody any permission to replicate, duplicate, recreate, or tell my story, because naturally you can't tell it like I can tell it. Okay. And so without my written or expressed consent, let me go ahead and get that out the way. Okay. Um, yeah, so I really don't have any script that I'm going to follow. You all know me. I like to really kind of come off the dome, but we're going to touch on some very important topics. I hope I'm going to be able to answer some very important questions that many of you may have been having, about why I ceased certain things, about why it seems that I apparently kind of just fell off the map, why the changes, what's been going on, and moreover, hopefully to inspire you, in through and by hearing certain aspects of my journey, to inspire you to always aspire to be the best version of yourself. You don't want to be like anybody else. All right. So we're going to get off into it. And what I did decide to do was write down in my book some very important topics that I wanted to just touch on. Okay. Now, one of the first things that I want to touch on is, for example, the starseed healer, right? The starseed healer. Um, when I first came on the social media scene, I introduced myself as the starseed healer. I was the first person to really coin that term, rock with the term. I'm realizing now the importance of letting go of titles, letting go of the necessity to feel like we own anything or anything belongs to us, because the only thing that belongs to you currently, until it doesn't, is the air in your lungs, the blood in your veins, right? So many names, but one destiny. So I started this social media journey as the starseed healer. I wanted to broaden, especially moreover, the melanated community's perception of chakras, of energy healing. And so I was really kind of pushing, third eye activation, astral travel, astral projection. These were some of the things that I initially, as Aphrodite Stone, as I began to evolve into Aphrodite Stone, these are some of the things that I was teaching, that I was promoting. Now, while there was a very small interest coming from the melanated community at that time. Now, everybody in the world now is talking about crystals and energy and meditation and all of these things, right? But at that time, about 11, 12 years ago, when I first came on the YouTube scene, there was a very small portion of people that found themselves interested in talking about crystals, energy, and all of these things. And so I said, well, where's everybody at? Where are melanated people at as it relates to spirituality? Wow. Then I began to revisit, and I'll say revisit because I have some very important points, but I'm starting at different points that I wanted to discuss with you all as we talk about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe. So this is my story. I'm going to tell it. No frills, straight to the point, and near my exit, I will leave room for maybe a couple of questions, and to also make sure to tell you all to make sure that you check the links in the description. Make sure you read the description too. I'll put a little time and thought into that. So again, starting off as a starseed healer, having gone through many names but one destiny, right? So the starseed healer, Aphrodite Stone, I began to revisit some of my early inclinations about Ifa, the Yoruba tradition, and Santeria and Wicca and many of these other things. I began to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the African culture, into the Ifa, after having done an African ancestry DNA test. found out that a very huge percentage, over 75% of my ancient ancestry came from the Nigeria and Benin area. Now, hold on. And we're going to get to why that seems to be less and less important the higher you evolve in your consciousness, right? Because DNA is just what it is. It is your data system for your physicality. When we are talking about spirituality, some of these things become less and less important, but I'll leave that for down the road. Remember, the starseed healer, Aphrodite Stone, named by many names, one destiny. We're talking today about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe. Now, I also wanted to put a bulletin out here about music and art as my life companions. Music and art have always been my life companions. They have been my life companions from the time that I was a young child. Many of you know that I have recorded and performed music under the name Sister Fire. So many times my music would also reflect where I was vibrating spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. This is what music is. Music serves as a reflection. So music has always been my life partner, and art has always been my life partner. So many of you that had been my students and clients, been students and clients of Aphrodite Stone when I was operating under that avatar, know that one of the things that I would have you do in a mentoring session would be to paint, draw, sketch, or create from your mind's eye the version of your higher self that you were introduced to through meditation in your mind's eye. So this has been something that I've been doing for many years. All right. And it has been an effective tool in helping people who have had difficulty with connecting with their higher selves to connect with their higher selves. Many of you all already know what I'm talking about. So music and art have always been my life partners. Okay. So throughout whatever religion or spirituality that I had happened to be practicing at the time, music and art have always been a part of it. Now, I won't necessarily say that all of the music that I have created has always been high vibrational, as now I would want it to be, but I've always been an open book. I have always been one to never be afraid to share my many sides, my many phases, my ruling planet being the moon. And we know that the moon is constantly shifting and changing phases. And all of these phases have a different or particular effect on us at the time. Okay, so I've never been afraid to share that. So if I'm feeling a little, like a spiritual warrior or a warrior at the time, I'm gonna put out some music that's going to reflect that. I'm going to put out protective music, all with the intention, from the heart's intention, to assist the people. The sacrifice of Ashe, to help the people. Are you with me? So, music and art have always been a part of my life, long before I decided to walk any type of spiritual path. Let's just be real about it. Now, another point that I wanted to make to you all is that teachers claim to be called. One thing that I can say is that teachers are not called, we are created. Yeah, teachers are created. Excuse me. Which is going to bring me to a very important point, okay, about the importance of not teaching as you go. You know, how I used to do in the past when I first came into spirituality. I want to teach you as I go. Even though I haven't given my spirit or my soul, the full adaptability of the lesson to really assimilate the download into my spirit. I want to teach it. I just want to share it. It's like, breaking news, right? And so there have been mistakes that myself and many of you all have probably made along the way, because as it relates to receiving spiritual information in particular, You have to allow that thing to kind of just resonate within your spirit. And so that way you can check it and recheck it against all of your chakras, all of your energy centers. When you channel information, you need to bring it down into the crown. And then what you need to do is to be able to run it through each one of your energy centers to see how it feels. Now, if as you're running that download or that spiritual information into each one of your energy centers and you feel off or you feel some sort of a misalignment, then perhaps it might not be for you. Okay. Teachers are not called, teachers are created. You have to go through something, you have to experience something, you have to be able to put your learning to the test at all times in order to actually be able to teach somebody, because I can I can only teach you how to bleed if I teach you while I'm going through something. I can only teach you what that agony feels like. I can only show you what that pain feels like. I can only show you what the misery of that thing feels like. It's until after I heal, only until after I heal that I have the ability to teach you how to overcome it, to teach you how to go through it. Okay, so teachers have to be creative. Another thing I want to touch on really quickly is childhood trauma being a catalyst for third eye opening. Childhood trauma being a catalyst for third eye opening. Now, this is true whether many people recognize it as truth or not. But childhood trauma can be a catalyst for third eye opening. Think about it. When a very young child is going through some form of trauma, some form of abuse, some form of a situation where the psyche has to go into overdrive. So a persona may have to be created in the child's mind, right? And so, how do we reach these personas? Because the third eye is blasted open through trauma. Because what can I do? I have to do something. I have to create a scenario. I have to create, something, an escape in my mind to help me to deal with the situation at hand. As a child, many people are introduced to that. So I, like many other super empaths, was no different. Okay. You can go through the physical abuse, as I spoke about in my book, Cursed from the Cradle, which was on Amazon. I talked about the physical abuse, the emotional and mental abuse that I endured as a child from about age 9. Right. And so this childhood trauma was a catalyst for third eye opening, because shortly between the ages of about 11 and 13 is when I began to have supernatural experiences as a child. I began to see things from beyond the veil. And I am almost certain that had it not been for the physical abuse that I endured, which most children see, what happens is the psyche gets broken. And it has to break, it has to shatter. But that's something that you all will learn more about the more you go off into psychology and how the mind works. This is why it's not a good thing to teach as you're learning it. You got to go ahead and learn and ground those lessons before you can teach somebody how they can get through it. Okay, so childhood trauma is a catalyst for third eye opening. And I, like many super empaths, many of you have experienced childhood abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, abuse in your adolescence, and that had become the catalyst for your third eye opening. It's a fact. Also, as a child, I had a natural interest in magic. When I was a child, I used to watch shows like Bewitched. I used to watch shows like, and I used to not only love magic, but I used to love outer space, right? I used to love Alf and Mork and Mindy and Swiss Family Robinson and Star Wars and all of these things, not knowing that all of these things, it's a natural part of your evolution if you know what your soul calling was. Trust me, it's gonna get deeper as we go along. Just walk with me. So I've always, from childhood, had this, and we're talking about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe. Ashe, for those of you that don't know, it simply means energy. Your energy, the aura that you put off, the spiritual energy that belongs to each and every one of us, not to be mistaken with your soul. Okay. So I've also always had an interest, and I'm looking at my notes that I wanted to remember as I get older. I want to make sure that I get things precise, and I wanted to go in somewhat of an order as we build up to the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone. So I've always had an interest in candle magic, also from a young age, but that interest came out of despair. Remember, from a super young age, I had an interest in magic and outer space, very young, right? Magic tricks and all of these different things. And so as I became a teenager, I want to say in my mid teens, I developed an interest in actually doing the work. Right. So could it be because I'm a life path one? Could it be because I'm a natural ace of spade? Could it be because I'm born under the zodiac of the Cancerian, which Cancerians are highly and naturally intuitive? But now, as we evolve into and we shift into a different spiritual paradigm, we realize that each and every one of us is all of the zodiacs, because you're going to travel through the Aries, and then you're going to travel through the Taurus, and then through the Gemini, and through the Cancerian, and through the Leo. So you don't have to necessarily be stuck to say, oh, I'm a Pisces, or I'm a this, or I'm a that. You're going to learn how to allow your soul to travel and elevate through each one of the zodiacs, because this is what we do. We're constantly evolving and revolving. So, revolution, family. Okay. So, my interest in candle magic came out of despair. Despair for myself and despair for others. I remember being very young. I was a teen mom. I've shared this with many of you all before. I was a teen mother. Okay. And I remember being so desperate, for my child's father and my relationship to work, being that young. And so I did the only thing that many of you all have come to me and wanted guidance about. And I figured that I would do a love spell. I figured that I would do some love magic. I figured that I would do some candle magic. And what did I do? I did some candle magic. And I thought in that time, with my limited and minimal understanding, I believe at the time I was about 16 years old, and with my minimal understanding, I really and truly thought that me putting these two people shaped candles closer together, lighting the flame, and all of this stuff was going to bring me and the father of my child together. Now, it brought us together, but I won't say that we came together for the right reasons. And thank God, Goddess, and all the ancestors that that situation, worked out the way that it was supposed to. Sometimes a person comes into your life, right? As a soulmate, not necessarily a twin flame, but a person will come into your life as a soulmate to help your soul evolve on many levels, and that he did. So, this interest in candle magic started to come about in, let's say, my mid-teens. Okay, so my early 20s, I was full on doing root work. I was connecting into the geechiness of my grandmother, connecting to the different bloodlines that I had within me, which was the Jamaican, the Nigerian, the Haitian, and of course the American. And then with the just going into more knowledge and wisdom about the deep south and some of the southern, our root healers and different things, especially in those Geechee areas, and how a lot of them brought a lot of that from Africa. So I began to really, really, really develop my interest in my so-called Blackness, my so-called Black power. I wanted to connect with everything that I thought that my ancestors was into at that time. So at this around this same time, as I'm developing this interest, and now you remember, you'll see this natural elevation, you'll see this natural spiritual elevation, and you'll see how we have a reset. So during this time that I'm finding this natural uh, uh, interest in full on root work, and I'm doing root work, and this is like my early 20s, 20, 21, 22. I'm full on doing root work for other people, right? Inspired by some of the very greats that were in the South at that time. There was a brother named Baba Karu, and I think at this point he calls himself like King Peru, something like that. But this elder has been around for a long time doing his thing, and he has been one of the staples in Columbia, South Carolina. At that time, he had a shop called the Nile Valley, and I learned of him through his daughter, who I worked with at a bank. And I worked with his daughter, and we had become friends. And we would get together and burn our ganja and eat our vegan food, and different things like that. And she had worked at her father's shop, and the very first time I went in there, mind blown, mind blown. All of the stuff about Kemet and Africa, and just those bitter tonics that he had, and all of the knowledge that he had. Now, can you imagine where he's radiating now, like 30 years after the fact? Yeah, so if you all are ever in Columbia, South Carolina, check out King Kuru. Yeah, he's something else. But I've been knowing that brother for a very long time. So during that time that I'm tapping into all of this, I'm also walking the path of Rastafari. At this point in my mind, giving homage to my Jamaican ancestry. Well, let me, because remind you now, I wasn't finding it in the church, the church that my grandmother had raised me in, going to a Church of God in Christ, going to a Kojic church, right? I hadn't found it. I found a lot of hypocrisy. I found a lot of things that I wouldn't even speak on right now, but you all know some of the things that go on in the church. That's one thing that hasn't changed. A lot of what's going on now in the churches went on then. All right. And so, even at that young age, there was something about my spirit that knew that something about the church just was not right. So, I had given up on Jesus Christ a long time ago. And I said, you know what? I'm going to find out where God is. Because one thing that I did believe was the stories that my grandmother told me constantly. The Bible says, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door shall be open, ask and it shall be given. Okay, well, I'm asking for the truth about the Most High. Again, we're going to have a reset. We're coming back around. We're talking about the rise and fall of Afrodeity Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe, because now I know that the Most High is in me. The Most High is right here. The highest part of the human physicality, the Most High, is your head, your dome, your crown, your ori. But I'll get back to that in a moment. So at this point, I'm walking with Rastafari. Holy Emmanuel Ali Selassie. Ja. That's it. You know the rest. And this took me into learning more about His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, who I found out was a Coptic Christian. Now, when you look at ancient Christianity, Coptic Christianity, that ancient one that goes all the way back into Ethiopia, where they're speaking the Aramaic, and the true Madonnas that they pattern all of the rest of them after. When I noticed that Haile Selassie was a Coptic Christian, right? And then you even had artists like Garnet Silk, Christ in his kingly character, spoke about Christ, about Rastafari being like the Christ returned. And you found that many Rastafaris thought that Haile Selassie was the Christ returned. Then there were many Rastas that felt like, burn Jesus, burn the church, burn this, burn that. And I'm like, okay, but if you're burning Jesus and you're burning the church, then clearly you must be burning Haile Selassie too, because Haile Selassie was a Coptic Christian. Come on, somebody make it plain, because now I'm confused. Right? So I begin to just, and me, I'm the type of, spiritual explorer that will put my all into a situation. I'm going to put my every ounce of who I am into a situation. I ain't going to play with it. I'm going to fully immerse myself into the culture, into the knowledge, into the language, into everything that there is to know. Then I saw some of my heroes. And this is where I messed up as a melanated woman. is I shouldn't have had heroes. I should have had sheroes, which is when I began to look into Empress Wazira Menin, Emperor Haile Selassie's wife, and I found out what a humanitarian she was and how she had built a school and all of these different things. And I'm like, okay, that's one of the first things that we do as women, holding a spiritual seat of power, is that we will voluntarily hand it over. Hold on one more minute. The sacrifice of Ashe will voluntarily hand it over to men without finding sheroes, without finding other women to learn from and pattern our actions and our behaviors after, because we as the feminine aspect, the female, expressing, identifying, and operating in that feminine energy, we cannot express as a male the way that a male would. I mean, and take that and do with it what you will. I'm not here for that. Okay. So I found myself kind of backing off because I found some of my heroes really not being true to, at that time, being true to some of the teachings that they were putting forward. And again, that was my fault because, like many people that found themselves going into Rastafarianism, they found Rastafari through reggae music. And ain't nothing wrong with that, because reggae music that's the music of the world, baby. That's the peace and love music of the world. Reggae, everybody loves reggae music. Well, mostly everybody, right? And so we found Rastafari. First, you find Rastafari just kind of as an umbrella term. And then you go deeper and then you start studying the ways and the teachings of His Majesty. Right. And then, of course, you have to give homage to Leonard Powell, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and many of the other Prince, rather, King Emmanuel. You have to start giving homage to some of the other figures that made Rastafari very important, not to leave out many of the wonderful sistren who rocked the movement and really made it to where women in Rastafari had more of a voice, more of a presence, more visibility, and not just through reggae music being backup singers, but on a real spiritual level. All right. So that was about in my 20s. In my 30s is when I really wanted to go deep into 30s, let's say 40s. I wanted to go off deeply into the Ifa, Santeria, Vodun, all of these traditions, all of these cultures. And here's what's interesting is that, again, I found myself wanting to go into these traditions based off of the DNA test. Like many of you all will get a DNA test, right? And I found myself, okay, well, this is what worked for my ancestors, then clearly it will work for me. But not once did I check firstly with my ancestors through and by working strictly and solely with their energy to find out, okay, yeah, this might be in my bloodline, but is this the spiritual path that I'm truly supposed to be following? Because listen, it wasn't until I stepped my foot, complete foot, not just my toe, but my complete right foot, because I always had a righteous intention, but I put my complete right foot into Ifa, and it opened up a world of so many things. It opened up a world of me knowing how spiritual forces connect with natural forces and how they manifest into our lives and show up on a very real level. It also opened me up to the knowledge and wisdom of an extreme sickness within the hearts and minds of people, which is jealousy and using the power for ill means. See, because power doesn't belong to us, right? Power doesn't belong to the battery. The battery only gets power when it's connected to a source. See, you and I, we're the batteries. We're the batteries. So at this time, I'm going deep into that. I'm going deep. I'm going deep into my Ifa, um, my Santeria, my Vodun. Now, At some point, now remember, I'm going deep into this within my, let's say, mid 30s, into my mid 40s, a very, very long time. So around my mid 40s, I decided that I also wanted to step my toe into angelic magic. Angelic magic. Working with angelic sigils, working with angel names, working with um, a particular group that I found angel magic very empowering throughout many times. But I will tell you that the mixing, and many people won't tell you this, but the mixing, see, people think that you can have a smorgasbord of spirituality and that you can just keep throwing shit at the wall to just find out what might stick, right? When it comes to spirituality, because oftentimes we find ourselves running into spirituality out of what? Out of despair. We need something. We need something from spirit. Oh, I need a job. I need a man. I need a healing. I need some abundance. I need an open road. We find ourselves needing something from spirit. And so we run into spirit. We run to spirit out of despair, only with that tunnel vision, that thing that we need. Even me, this is how I practice. This is how I practice in my own life. And this is how I practice with my clients. It's like I thought I was going into it with reverence, but I was going into it with a selfish need, whether that need was for myself or whether that need was for my clients. Oh, spirit. Oh, goon. Oh, abatala. I need for this to be taken off my client. My client needs so and so and so and so. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the sacrifice of Ashe. In ancient Jewish tradition, much like in the Yoruba tradition, in ancient Jewish tradition, I'm talking about ancient for those of you that don't mind doing a little bit of research, they will take a chicken and cleanse the head, right, and the body of the person needing the cleansing, and they will throw that chicken, right? And oddly enough, when the Yoruba or different other African traditions or cultural traditions across the world would practice some of the same things, guess what? They are ostracized or criticized for it. But you will find that in some ancient Jewish, and I found this out doing angelic magic, again using the Hebrew names and the Hebrew language and staring off into these angelic sigils. Now I want to kind of go back when I talked about the mixing, having a smorgasbord of spirituality. Now, a lot of people will feel, and a lot of you all that have practiced spirituality will feel that um, you're just going to have a bunch of different gods on your altar, your statues and whatnot, your deities that you're feeding. You're going to have a bunch of different gods on your altar, no matter if they're warring with each other, no matter if there's some deities that you can't put on an altar with somebody else. You just can't do it, right? But I, like many of you, in my early stages of spiritual development, would feel like, okay, well, I've got the Wicca and I've got the Yoruba and I've got the Voodoo and I've got the angelic sigils. I'm just gonna throw everything at the book at it, and then just something is gonna work. Now, this technique is not a far-fetched technique, and it's definitely not a bad technique. However, it can be very dangerous, mixing all of that magic, mixing all of those spiritual energies, because at the same time, remember, we talk about, for example, opening portals, and for many of us that called ourselves to become spiritual teachers or spiritual healers, you want to take only the good. You want to take only the accolades, but you say you didn't sign up for spiritual attack, or you weren't here for this. But yes, you were. Yes, you were, and yes, I was. Yes, I was. We might not have known it at the time, but oh yeah, we signed up for every spiritual attack that came our way, every backbite, every gossiping. We signed up for it. We caught ourselves to this place, or we were created for it, and you would know how to withstand. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the constant. I noticed on my spiritual journey that I cut my hair a lot. There was a constant cutting of my hair. Now, cutting of the hair from a spiritual perspective is a sign of rebirth and renewal. Like we're in the nine energy. I'm calling this a nine gateway that we're in right now, because 2025 is a 9 year. So we're in a nine gateway, not just about, cycles ending, but also about renewals and rebirths and regeneration, and letting go, truly letting go of the old, because this is the true reset. The nine gateway is the true reset, right? The ending, the recycle, the revolution into something, the revolution into the one, which is the actual new beginning. So next year we'll be experiencing new beginnings, but before you can have a new beginning, come on, family, you've got to have an ending of some sort. Yes. So I constantly cut my hair a lot, and I battled with this because, like, we vanity, vanity, my hair, my this, my that, the vanity, the vanity, the vanity. So when I talk about the sacrifice of Ashe, when I talk about the sacrifice of energy, the sacrifice of Ashe, I want to talk about some of the magic that I allowed myself to go deep off into. So I allowed myself to, and this is all of it is a sacrifice of Ashe. When I talk about a sacrifice of Ashe, I'm talking about just even when you are doing work for other people, you are sacrificing your Ashe. I am giving up a part of my Ashe, my energy, in exchange for a change in this person's life. Regardless if I truly know if that person is being honest or not, I'm putting myself on the line. I am sacrificing my Ashe. And this is what Afrodeity Stone did when I was operating under that avatar for so many years. This is why I decided to scrub the internet of a lot of my videos, because there were aspects about myself, although I'm very proud of who I was and who I am and who I am continue to evolve into. Some of the ways that I reflected myself, I was not happy with the way. And I said, wow, if I see myself this way, then I wonder if other people see. That's the spirit checking me. That is when your own Ori can get you under subjection. Your own higher self will say to you, hey, we know you wanted to get this message out, but did you have to get it out in a way that would possibly be more offensive to others and would drive them away from getting the point, when that very person that I had the potential to assist now can't even accept and receive what I'm saying because of the way that I said it. So I was consistently and constantly, every time you all would see me deleting videos, it was because I would go back and I would watch that and spirit would say, I don't like the way you said that. It was my own spirit. When I talk about the sacrifice of my Ashe, I'm talking about sex magic. I did it. I'm talking about blood magic. I did it. I'm talking about candle magic. I did it. I'm talking about money magic. I did it. I'm talking about water magic. I did it. I'm talking about fluid magic. I did it. I'm talking about shape shifting. I've done it. I'm talking about astral travel and astral projection. I've done it. Yes, I said shape shifting. Certain things I don't teach anymore, because remember I said that teachers are not called, teachers are created. Now, allowing myself to fall back and become a created teacher, now I realize that not everything is for everybody in a specific time, because I could do you more harm than good teaching you about something when you're not equipped. You might think you are on a cerebral level. We all think that we're so elevated right now. We all think that we are a guru, and maybe in somewhere in your world you are. But not everything is for everyone. All of these different magics that I tapped into, all of this mixing of the different traditions and the different spiritual paths, what I had created was a bucket of hell. I had created a bucket of chaos, and my entire world began to turn on me. Everything that I thought that I had known began to turn on me. I did it. I did it. When signing up to be a spiritual worker, you are signing up for spiritual attack. I'm going to say that again. Because you can't take the good aspects without the bad aspects. You can't think, see, and me, I took the spiritual attack with grace. Listen, when you are spiritually connected, there's not a time that you will come under spiritual attack that your spiritual guards or your spiritual intuition or your spiritual alarms won't go off and your spiritual guards won't alert you to what's going on. But see, the disadvantage that I had as a public figure operating under the Afrodeity Stone avatar was that while I'm here on the camera, front facing, many people are behind the scenes. And you don't necessarily know where energy is coming from. Now, there were times in my spirit, in my mind's eye, my spirit would show me exactly where the attack was coming from. And there was times that I would have no idea. And so during these times, I would employ whatever method that I felt sufficient at the time to deal with the spiritual attack. So I would take the attack with grace because I realized that if you call yourself to the front line as a spiritual warrior, you're going to have to be at war at some point. So I signed up for it. I just didn't know that I was going to get my ass kicked the way that I did. And a lot of it was self-imposed. A lot of it was self-imposed because if you sign up for the military and they half-ass train you during basic training, and then the next thing you know, the alarms are sounding off, and I'm talking about your ass just got off the bus and arrived at from the MEP center into your basic training, and you've not even fully trained, but the alarms in that moment, the alarms are going off and you're being called to war, but you're only halfway trained. But you're saying, I'm going to stand up and fight because I want to defend my country. I want to defend my community. I want to defend this and I want to defend that. But you've only got a part of the training. And listen, a part of the training comes from education, knowledge, wisdom, books, videos, learning from others. But guess what, loves? Guess what? Another part of the training comes through and by expense. Our hands on. I'm talking about internship. It's a part of it. This is why I say it is not wise to teach it as you're learning it, and that teachers are not called, teachers are created. The rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe. I didn't step off out of fear. I didn't step off out of any sort of defeat. I took these spiritual attacks with grace. What I feared the absolute most, though, and I'm just being real because remember, I said I done messed with all type of magic. I said I done messed with sex magic. I done messed with blood magic. There's only certain time I've just not dealt with the necronomenon, or however you say that book. It's just certain things I'm just not going to touch. I'd rather not tempt fate. But that doesn't mean that I've not had to war with demons. It doesn't mean that I've not had to war with, certain type of spirits. But again, we sign up for it. And then we complain, and then we want to, not me. I never involved myself in spiritual warfare back and forth on social media like I used to see a lot of people doing many years ago. I don't watch it anymore. But I used to say, wow, they are really at it, sacrificing all of that ashe for nothing. My fear was going so dark that I had to fight so much, that I had to defend myself so much. And I couldn't understand how I was out here serving spirits. I'm running to the crossroad. I'm running to the oceans. I'm running to the rivers. I'm running to the lakes. I'm running all over the place. I'm investing money and time and energy, AKA Ashe, into all of this for spirits that would also turn around and allow themselves to be used to attack me. I said to my Baba, I said, Baba, Help me understand. And he said, baby, the Orisha are impartial. They don't have any respect of person. They don't have any favorites. You call yourself a God child of so and so, of this spirit and of that spirit. What, you think you're the only one? You think you a favorite one because you put the most oranges and honey and gold out there? Baby, you are not the only one. And these spirits have a, if you will, mind of their own. My fear was that there were times during these attacks that were coming against me, and they would always manifest physically. I would always know, and I don't have to give life, breath, or wind to some of the ways that I knew, but let's just say that I knew that these things would manifest. All right, whether it be a car accident, whether it be, I would always know. But here's what they didn't know is that I taught you all, for many of you that know who I am, when I was operating under the Afrodeity Stone avatar, that I taught you all, or at least I told you all, that I know how to take your spiritual attack and turn it to money. And every time somebody spiritually attacked me, well, there was a settlement that was made where I was paid big bucks to have to deal with it. So in the car accident, for example, and then there was another incident where spiritual attack was sent to my home, and there was an incident where my skin got ate up with fiberglass. And I'll be honest with you, I fell off of the scene because my face was covered with blemishes all over, dark hyperpigmentation marks all over my face, neck, chest. There's still some on certain parts of my body, but I was ate up by fiberglass in a home that we were renting. And at the time that all of this was going on, I knew, because there was not only that going on at the same time, there was almost 2 accidents within like a 2-week period. So I knew, I felt the energy of spiritual attack being pushed on me. But little did they know that, yeah, you can attack me, but you don't have permission to kill me. You don't have permission to kill me. You don't have permission to take me out. And just to show you that what you did was an actual waste of time, I got checks for double-digit thousands of dollars. You can't tell my story like I can tell it. But I fell off from coming up here and doing videos because I was ashamed, family, of what my face looked like with all of those hyperpigmentation marks. I was ashamed. And I didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to grant any of my opposition any power, that there was defeat, but I fell back. I was like, I can't get up there and let my face be seen like this. And in a moment, Spirit revealed to me that there were people that were so jealous of me. You all remember I used to get up here and I used to say, yes, family, look at my skin. I look so much younger for my age. And because, when you're spiritually connected, it gives you a youth, it gives you a vibrancy where you don't age. And people probably took that as my being arrogant or my being conceited, when y'all know I'm the very least conceited person. I don't care about makeup. I don't care about what I look like. I'm going to get up here and I'm going to say what I got to say. If I feel like dolling it up, I'll doll it up. If I don't, I don't. Because I'm here for the message, and hopefully you were too. But it was revealed to me about the different spiritual attack. It was shown to me about some of the devices that these oppositions were using. And I had gone to a place that I went so dark, and I had begun to contract with some very low vibrating dark spirits, because I felt like, well, if this is the type of shit that they want to do, well, then let me fight fire with fire. And before I can slip all the way into the depths of darkness, because you know how low you can go. And then in the case that you don't know how low that you can go, this is when the universe will send a lifeline to pull you back. Because my loves, I was going so dark. I had gotten so tired of the attacks. I had gotten so tired. I said, you know what? I began to think like, who was it? King David in the Bible, who would pray prayers to God that says, wipe out my enemies, smash their children against rocks. People used to pray like this in the Bible. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it too then. I don't care if their children die, will twist up their wombs, dry up their wombs. I was going dark. I was like, I didn't care if kidney were taken out, I didn't care because I was just that tired. Because I said, how can spiritual attack continue to come to someone who is only doing good, who only has righteous intention? And then spirit reminded me, because you signed up for it and you've got to take the bitter with the sweet. And in that moment, as when I stopped fighting, I made the decision to stop fighting. And I made the decision to really and truly put my faith in spirit. Because if we're taking up the sword, then we're not really having that faith and that trust that our ancestors have our backs. And I'm like, okay, I'm from the show me state. Show me what y'all got. Show me what you're working with. And this is how I felt as it related to my ancestors and my spirit team. Where are you? And they said, we were here all the time. But you decided that you wanted to get your black ass on the front line and fight and do blood magic and do all of these things. Have you had enough yet? Have you had enough yet? I'm talking about the rise and fall of Afrodeity Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe. Doing celebrity readings was a huge sacrifice of my Ashe, because once we know a lot of the spiritual energy now is coming out now with a lot of the things that have been revealed about a lot of the ritual and some of the things that these people involve themselves in. But at that time, let me show you all. I chat GPT'd myself. Hold on. Let me show you all what chat GPT had to say about me. Isn't this hilarious? So I chat GPT'd myself. I went on chat GPT and I asked chat GPT about Aphrodite Stone. And then it said, there's very little known about Aphrodite Stone. And then I think I put in Aphrodite Stone psychic or something, tarot reader, and then it came back. And so this is what ChatGPT had to say about Sister Stone. It says Aphrodite Stone, also known as Dr. Aphrodite Ayeke Stone, has been recognized as a psychic, medium, healer, spiritual life coach, herbalist, and author. Her work spans various platforms, including YouTube, Blog Talk Radio, and published literature, reflecting her commitment to spiritual enlightenment and healing. Media presence and teaching. So YouTube readings. Aphrodite Stone gained attention for her tarot readings on YouTube, notably her insightful readings about Prince in 2014 and 2016. Y'all know that's my boy. He's behind me right now. I love him. I'm gonna always love him. Says these readings were part of her broader celebrity reading series where she offered spiritual insights into public figures. I was surprised that ChatGPT even knew that, right? And then it went on to say Blog Talk Radio shows. She hosted several discussions on Blog Talk Radio addressing topics such as societal perceptions of psychics in Will All Psychics Go to Hell, and personal empowerment and Don't Let the Imitators Get You Down. Dr. Stone authored several books that delve into spirituality, health, and cultural practices. What's My Sign? All about your zodiac sign. And I did. Margie Meditates, Color Me Healthy, The Origin Sensima, Urubu and Leal, Learn to Play, Learn About, and Afro-Brazilian Martial Art. Says these works reflect her diverse interests and her dedication to educating others on spiritual and holistic well-being. Aphrodite Stone was active in online spiritual communities, sharing messages and guidance. For instance, she addressed the importance of grounding and protection in spiritual practices, emphasizing the need for proper preparation when engaging with spiritual energies. Wow, kudos to ChatGPT. It says Aphrodite Stone's teachings often centered around self-awareness, healing, and the responsible practice of spirituality. She encouraged individuals to explore their spiritual path thoughtfully and emphasize the importance of authenticity and protection in spiritual work. So that's what ChatGPT had to say about me as I was operating under the avatar of Aphrodite Stone. And that's true. You never found me going back and forth with other spiritualists. You always found me trying to share my platform and bring others onto my platform and share the knowledge, share the wisdom. I never was selfish with my platform, but still yet power bred so much jealousy, but I signed up for it. And you did too, by the way, if you call yourself to do spiritual work. So celebrity readings opened me up also to a lot of spiritual attack through and by that. Now, one of the other things that I will say that I regret is through and by opening up myself, doing this spiritual work, opening up to spiritual channels, I subjected my family, my husband and my children, um, um, to whatever I was experiencing at the time. And I deeply regret that. Um, I did my very best to shield. I did my very best to follow my Baba's advice, which was not so much in defending, but more so from protecting. So I did both. I found myself doing both. And I deeply regret having subjected my family to that. I almost, my marriage almost failed a few times throughout the past 13 years that I operated under that avatar. And I am convinced that it was because of the many attacks that came my way, the very energy that was coming my way. But I decided to stop fighting back and turn it over to the spirit guides after having a very powerful and transformative encounter with the energy of Enoch after going deep into the books of Enoch and having what I considered to be an energetic or spiritual visitation from Matat, whom you all know as Metatron. Now, remember, I told you that I had been mixing all this stuff up for like all these years because these were all of the things that I found interest in. These are all of the things that I had a smorgasbord. But I'm just saying that it's dangerous to be trying to practice all of them at the same time, even if you have different members from different cultures, whatever, on your spiritual team. It can be very dangerous just to mix it all up together and just be throwing all of it in a pot because all of it doesn't mix well. Oil and water doesn't mix. Once I had this transformative, energetic download that I believe to have I received from the Matat energy, I began to see the inner workings of this reality and how it truly was just like a matrix, how each and every one of us is like Neo, and each and every one of us are assigned these different agents to keep us from coming out of this so-called matrix. In addition to that, see, this is what many of you all didn't know while I was smiling and coming on here talking about let's warm up the room, family. Let's energize the vortex. You know, I was so worried about the people copying me and copying my ancestor houses and copying everything that I did that I wasn't paying attention to the technological harassment and the behavior modification that was being attempted on me and the hijacking of my consciousness. Are you ready for that? Nobody can tell my story like I can tell it. When you open yourself up to these social media platforms and see, when I began to fall back from doing um, the celebrity readings, and I began to fall back from doing certain things, I was feeling like I was having some sort of a grand revelation about how I needed to evolve out of this. And meanwhile, my husband would be sitting back saying, babe, are you sure that that's your ancestors telling you to stop, or could it be something else? And me and my arrogance, watch this now, me and my arrogance, can't nobody hijack my conscience, can't nobody, I'm protected, I'm protected. I got a song called Protected on this channel. Make sure you check it out. Me and all my ignorance thinking that my husband is ignorant because he's not in the spiritual way. The whole time it's just the average people in your life that will give you the clues. So how did I know that I was under some sort of an observation program, behavior modification? Well, not to mention that my social media channels were getting broken into and cloned and all of these different things. You all remember when that happened on my Instagram a few years ago, and it literally scared the hell out of me. You know, I never put back an Instagram since then. I completely deleted my channel. I began to delete my stuff off of, because this fear and this paranoia sets in, because it's like, okay, I can deal with the little stuff coming at me from the little witchy witches and the little, because again, You signed up for this when you said you wanted to do this type of work. But what I wasn't ready for was this behavior modification, this people. Now we don't know who they are, what groups they attach to, but yes, they would be watching certain people within the spiritual community. Now they're not worried about the ones just sitting around here regurgitating and trying to entertain you, but anybody that was actually really tapped in, connected, and gifted, and that were actually sharing secrets that they knew were real, oh yeah, they would try to shut you down. And I fell victim to that. And it was revealed to me that that's what was going on. So here I am. I'm talking about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone. Here I am dealing with disgruntled students who feel like, they want to test my gangster. I'm dealing with the jealous people who feel like that they want to have what I have, not knowing that if you all were trying to get some of what Aphrodite Stone had, baby, you didn't want all that was attached to that. Trust me. It's just that I kept serving with a smile. Never let them see you sweat. See, my thing was, if I showed any amount of weakness at any time that I came up on that YouTube, even when my pop passed away in 2020, when my grandfather died, do you all know I flew out to Carolina for his funeral, stayed out there for about a week to handle my business, and got right back to the business, still seeing students, still doing mentoring, still doing readings without properly having the opportunity to grieve and heal because I felt this loyalty to this work. I'm talking about the sacrifice of Ashe. So when you are at a very weak level energetically, when your Ashe is becoming constantly depleted, you can't defend yourself from spiritual attack. You can't defend yourself. Your sensors are not going to go off to let you know, hey, this is something that's unnatural. This is something that's supernatural. But this is what was going on. I found myself having thoughts that weren't mine. I found myself wanting to disconnect from things that had always been near and dear to me. And I said, well, wait a minute. I would find myself physical parts of my body, doing things autonomously. And I'm like, uh-oh, somebody's fucking with me. And I knew that there was no spiritualist in the physical realm that can cause that. See, this is how you have to be spiritually intelligent, because it's not always the people who you think are doing these things against you. It's something much more sinister. So then I began to say to myself, okay, well, if y'all want me to shut up, all you got to do is say, shut up. Because it's not worth my life. It's not worth my family's life to be seen, the notoriety. Oh, I want to be the next Sylvia Brown. I want to be the next Doreen Virtue. Remember something. You never want to be the next anybody. You just want to be the best version of you. We're talking about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone today and the sacrifice of Ashe. I'm telling my story. I'm telling my journey. No frills. No big production needed. Just telling my story the way that it was, the way that it went down, the way that it is. I began to deal with the technological harassment. I began to, like, my websites would be, jacked and, just all of these things. And I said, wow, somebody is going through a very great length to shut me down. And we all know where this type of stuff comes from. But what I can tell you is that on top of all of that, when you begin to be bombarded with all of this at one time, you begin to see more enemies than friends. You begin to see enemies everywhere. I begin to get so fatigued and so burdened. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this work for these clients. I'm cleaning this witchcraft off of them. I'm cleaning this spiritual work. I'm doing this. I'm standing in the midst. I'm standing in the middle, man. And, I started to find myself feeling angry a lot of the time because, are these people stuff attaching to me because maybe I'm not supposed to be removing it? And then this is when I began to start teaching you all about making sure that you are doing a reading or you are consulting with your spirit guides before you take a case doing spiritual work or spiritual readings for anyone. This is why you've always had to make an appointment with me. You can't just call a line, because I need to let the spirits show me what's coming ahead of you so that I can prepare. Not to say that I can't deal with it, but I need to know what's coming. Because there may be a time that I have to turn you down, because what you're dealing with, the spirit is saying that it is something that is a part of your development and your growth, something that you possibly potentially could have called into your own experience, something that you have to go through. But here I am, signed, sealed, delivered. I'm yours. You know, I began to see more enemies than friends. I began to see enemies as friends and friends as enemies. I began to be turned all the way on. Everybody was an enemy, in my mind. Some clients that were particularly egregious and constantly, with this, I found myself having thoughts like, "Who these bitches are getting on my nerves," and I'm like, this is not the type of thoughts that should be becoming of a spiritual guide, a spiritual mentor, a spiritual healer. But this is where I was vibrating, because I was sacrificing so much of my ashe. I was sacrificing so much of my energy that it got to a place where I couldn't see where it was coming from, and everybody was an enemy. And I knew that that wasn't right. In my heart of hearts and in my soul of souls, I knew that that was not right. But it was because everything I had opened myself up to, everything that I had practiced, everything that I had done, all of the spiritual gumbo and the mixing and matching of traditions and paths that I have done in my ignorance, in my teaching it as I was learning it. This is why they say that experience teaches wisdom, because only a portion of your training in life comes from what you can learn from the outside. The biggest portion of that is living through it yourself. Spirits were working through me the whole time though, and I was real strong though. I was like, one of them kids, you all got them kids that, you whoop them and they won't cry. Like I was one of those, like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. You're not gonna break me. You get what I'm saying. And so this is how I was carrying it, in my spiritual path. Every time you all saw Afrodeity Stone get on the computer screen, she was smiling. Peace, love, and oneness, family. What's going on? But behind that smile was turmoil, was conflict, was a very darkness that was being fed by every spiritual case that I had taken, every client that I was doing work for, and removing spiritual energy off them and thinking that I'm knowing how to properly dispose of it. And many of you have been witness, you have been with me and seen my spiritual work in action, and you have felt the spiritual energy. And speaking of, there were a lot of people, speaking about seeing enemies as friends, there were a lot of people that wanted to log on to the Aphrodite Stone bandwagon. They saw a name, they saw Aphrodite Stone rising in notoriety. And this is what I wanted. This is what I said over 20 years ago. I want to be a household name. I want to be the best reader and psychic and spiritualist. And I want everybody to know me all around the world. I don't want that no more. I don't want that no more, because with that type of notoriety, it came with things that I didn't expect. And only now, after having gone through it all, can I tell you that I wouldn't take it back, but I would definitely kind of navigate it a little bit differently, because I love what I did and I love what I do. I'm just doing it differently now. Yes, I'm still seeing people, and I have been behind the scenes still seeing particular students and clients. I just hadn't had myself open to the masses, because I realized that there were people that were just attaching to the Aphrodite Stone bandwagon. They wanted to pump and drain and pull as much information out of they could without even really, number one, seeing the value. And only you can see the value in what I present to you. I can only present to you what I say I'm going to give. But people weren't actually applying the knowledge and wisdom. And so then it began to be just like a pull off my energy. People, they want to be, oh, I want to be your friend. How can you be my friend when you don't know me? You only know the avatar. You only know the persona. There were a few people that I decided to try and let get close. And they didn't like the me that was not on the video because I'm just like you. I tried to show that the entire time that I'm just like you. You put me on a pedestal. I didn't ask to be there. And then so when you put someone on a pedestal, it's like Humpty Dumpty that sat on the wall. When the fall happens, the egg cracks. And my egg got cracked. And all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put me back together again. Yes, I was gifted. Yes, I was connected, but I wasn't disciplined. And a spiritualist with no discipline, I was organized, but I didn't have discipline. I would allow myself to be emotionally charged by every negative comment, while there could have been 2 or 3, 4, 5, or 10 negative comments, and there could have been 1,000 positive ones. But for some reason, that negative stuff just used to charge me and fill me up. That was the darkness that was inside of me. That was the darkness that I had contracted with, that needed to live inside of me to a degree to be able to help me to withstand a lot of the work that I was doing. You needed to be able to embrace a certain amount of darkness, a certain amount of ability to tap into certain things to call yourself a spiritualist that's going to be fighting off or warding off or standing as an intercessor, for different people in the spiritual realm, because the spiritual realm is very real. Very, 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 very real. The sacrifice of Ashe. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I decided to stop all magic. I decided that I was tired of sacrificing my Ashe, that I was tired of everything that came with it, and that I felt like, I was just at a place where I just want to stop all magic. I stopped doing any type of magic. I stopped taking clients' spiritual work. I stopped a lot of these things because at the end of the day, it wasn't as fulfilling because my Ashe was so depleted. I decided to stop all magic. I decided to go into a spiritual cryo chamber and call back my energy, call back all of the energy that I had dispersed, not in vain, but I need it back now. Many of you still walk with my spiritual imprint. If I've ever laid hands on you, if I've ever done work for you, I know that although I tried to switch my name to Ningba, many of you will always remember me as Afrodeity Stone. And I'm okay with that. I thought I was going to bury it. I tried to bury it, but Spirit said to me, these are all aspects. These are all the different faces. These are all the masks, different names, but one destiny. I decided to call back my energy. I decided to take time to heal. My skin started getting better. My face, I'm still looking as young as a connected spiritual person should be. Because when you are looking old and dried up and beat up, it means that spirit is draining you. It means that life is draining you. I had to fall back, to pull back, to focus on me. Now, all of the things that I have been wanting to manifest, that I felt like were being stopped and held up by all of the spiritual attack, it wasn't that. Because no weapon formed against me, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. No weapon formed against us shall prosper. But what was happening was that I was sacrificing all of my Ashe, helping everybody in the world. And then when it came time to manifest what I was trying to manifest, I didn't have enough gas to get the engine going because I put everybody else before myself. So for the past 2 years, I have decided to call back my energy, take time to heal, and I've manifested the home of my dreams. I always wanted a home with a koi pond and extra space and a beautiful backyard paradise. So we finally have been closed on a home, and my marriage is just at its peak, and my children are thriving. A couple of them are going to be getting married soon, and my family is just. I needed my energy for me. Many of you spiritualists, you wonder why you're going through so many things in your life right now. It's because, you think that you got some loyalty to the game. Well, baby, the game ain't got no loyalty to you. And you got to start listening to your higher heights, the higher part of yourself when it tells you to fall back and stop chasing the notoriety. Listen, there were times, I want to say it might have been 2018. 2018 was my biggest financial year ever. The workshops, the retreats, like running 3 retreats per year, right? The constant doing the readings, and all of the things that I was doing, and the online classes, and all of the things and selling the products, the candles, the bath salts, all of the things that I was doing. 2018, I made close to 6 figures as a spiritualist. Now, I did that by myself and with the love and support of my soul family. But looking back, wow, I also lost a lot financially, spiritually, emotionally. I lost time with my family. My children grew up with me being under the Afrodeity Stone avatar, speaking to 5 and 6 clients a day, 5 days a week, calling that energy into my home, calling that energy into my space. Meanwhile, my children are growing up in front of my eyes and I can't even see it. The rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone and the sacrifice of Ashe. I'm forever grateful. I'm forever grateful. But I would give back the money and the notoriety for peace. And that's what I had decided to do. I said, you know what? I don't want to do no more readings. I only kept a very small group of people that I would connect with behind the scenes. I wasn't advertising it. I wasn't, doing any of that. I stopped selling my decks and all of that. I felt like, damn, I did turn into Doreen Virtue, because didn't she just abruptly cut out for a different reason, I'm sure. But maybe a similar reason, but just a different way she described it. Because as you evolve, you begin to get to a place where you realize that love don't love nobody. Another one of the things that I began to see was the differences in when you talk about spirituality and religion. And I haven't, like right now where I am, you might say, where I am, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a, all of these things that have been a part of me will always be a part of me. But right now, what I identify as spiritually non-binary. You ain't gonna bind me to nothing at this point. Even when it comes on to Christianity, although there was a time that here recently over the past year, I've been working with the Christed energy, not the Jesus Christ that couldn't get melanated people out of slavery, but I've been listening to a lot of Reverend Ike and Joseph Murphy and Neville Goddard and some of these old teachers that would teach about how the Christ mind was actually the center of your soul, your connection, and I began to work with that energy, and I begin to get different types of downloads about, how to operate, as a spiritualist, where it was safe for me, where all of the knowledge that I had, I needed to have. But I truly understand how Yeshua felt, this persecution that you feel when you're only trying to teach the masses, and then you have a small group, the disciples, right? Or that you teach your inner true teachings to. Then you have apostles, which are people that will take what you were teaching them, and then they're gonna go and teach somebody else, and they're gonna go and build their thing based off of a lot of the information, knowledge, and wisdom that they got from you. You know, hmm, Where I stand now, I identify as knowing that I am one with universal source. I know that I can put on a Christian hat, a Muslim hat, a Yoruba hat. I can put on a Sangoma hat. I can put on a hat of Udon. I can put on a hat of Buddhism. I can put on a hat of a shaman. And I've worn all of these hats, and I would still be as effective, as influential, as powerful, um, because I am connected to source. You are connected to source. We are connected to source. So my teachings now vary greatly from what I taught when I was under the avatar of Afrodeity Stone. I still maintain a certain level of respect for the Orisha, the Loa, the deities that have taught me, the deities that have raised me on this spiritual journey. But I choose now to operate on the truth and wisdom that I am enough. I appreciate y'all, but I no longer need you. See, following a religion or a spiritual path is a choice that we make when we want to come into the knowledge of who we are and how this world operates and how this world works. See, it's a choice. And you could choose to go into this, or you could choose to go into that, or you could choose to go into the other. But the ultimate goal is to come out with a knowledge of self. Come out being the best version of yourself that you can be. So now I wanted to share a little bit about the rise and fall of Aphrodite Stone, why I fell back, what I've learned, where I am now is at a place that I am an artist, I'm a visionary, I'm living my best life. Art and music have always been my life partners, and currently you can get to the Seed of Light. You can check the links in the description. Yes, you can still get your spiritual healing consultations with me, but we're going to be working it a little bit differently. We're going to be working with that higher self through artistic creations and allowing you to create something, which is literally the first act of magic, is taking something that is on the inside of you and forming it into something that is tangible. That's magic. You don't have to look outside of yourself for magic. I didn't have to look outside of myself for magic. The fact that you are, the fact that I am, baby, we are magical in and of ourselves. All right. So listen, I'm not even going to hold you and tell you that I'll be back next week. Right? I don't know when I'll be back. I'm just going to blow like the wind. These 9-year Oya winds that continue to blow. I'm going to continue to blow when I feel inspired to come and share. I'm going to come and share, but I no longer have the desire to be seen, to be recognized, to be known. I only have the desire to be of service to those who are ready to elevate. And so if that's you, you check the link in the description and you find me where I am. Until next time, I want to tell you thank you for sharing your time with me. Let me look at the comments because I promised you all that I would. I shout out a couple of people really, really, really quickly. Oh, yes, Tiffany. Hey, Bench Thinker. Hey, Tarot and Oracle for the Soul. Hey, Alma. I love you all. Hey, Shake. Mm-hmm. A lot of us are still stuck on stupid, unfortunately. Hey, Delia. Hey, Mama Imani. Herbal clinician. Hey, Angel. Good, good, good. Hey, Nurse Nita. Peace, 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 Denise. Genesis, Janae. Kalela Dula. Peace and greetings to you all. Peace and greetings to all of you that decided to sit with me through this. Thank you, Just Cree. I'm always, and I'm still here for you all along your journey. It just looks differently now. My assistant looks different. My assistant looks differently now. I'm no longer depending on the outside tools because we have to start depending on the inside wisdom, right? And so, again, I am still here to offer spiritual consultations, but we're going to get our downloads by connecting through spirit. I'm going to teach you how to operate on the physical, mental, and spiritual planes. All right. I have decided to keep the cost for my sessions at something that I think is fair, not as high as they have been for those of you that could not afford them, but not as low as to have people to continue to play with my time and energy, because I just don't have it like that anymore. All right. I want to say I love you all. It is my granddaughter's birthday today, and we are getting ready to cut some cake and have a celebration. And I just want to say thank you, and I love y'all, and I'm still around. And share this video and let people know that although Afrodeity Stone, the name has been retired. Again, many names, one destiny. Until next time, I leave you all in the peace, love, and oneness of the infinite creator. Ta-ta, family.